that having sex with a man on the first date will bond him to her, but that doesn't work with secure men or avoidant men. It really only works with crushingly insecure men who crave approval, and women don't want to bond with those men.
Men, we don't get the same kind of hormone release that women do, and we don't process it the same. For us, it's a lot more dopamine. It's not the same level of oxytocin quite that they get. So we are very different. Women, if they have an orgasm with a man, they're probably going to bond with him. This is why casual sex is so difficult for women, and especially maintaining friendships and just steady platonic or casual friends with benefits situations for women. This is why they turn friends with benefits into situationships. This is why this happens. They will start off agreeing one thing, then do the other. You've probably seen this before, I'm sure. Men don't bond that way. They just don't typically. If there's already a bond happening, yes, then having sex can be unitive, and it can make him love you and not love you, but make him care for you more. It can increase his affection for you. It can increase the bonding, but the connection already has to be there. You don't get a guy to fall in love with you doing that. So this whole first date, sleep with him on the first date so he'll stay around, that's a whole
doesn't work.
Yeah, I wonder whether it's women using their theory of mind. I think in the evolutionary psychology literature, it's called cross-sex mind reading failures. So they believe that if it was me, the only way that I would be able to sleep with somebody is if I felt very deeply about them. Therefore, if this happens with the man, then this is how he must feel about me. And it's
right. I get that. So because he's sleeping with me or sleeping with you, then he must feel deeply about me, or as the woman would say, right? But that's not how it works for men. It's totally different.
failure of using your own theory of mind.
You're very right. It's also, I've been studying a lot into mirroring neurons, especially when we're little children. So when we're born, we have the amygdala, and then we have a lot of mirroring neurons. It's two of the only structures that are really fully formed at birth. And our mirroring neurons, we're supposed to have mom. Mom is supposed to be paying attention to us and looking at us and mirroring our expression to her, so that we feel interesting to people just by existing. And then when we make a face, she mirrors it back to us, and we start mirroring each other, and we say, other people will respond to me. I am enough. If mom doesn't, she's depressed, she's tired, she's exhausted, she's working 3 jobs and is never there. We're in daycare all the time. If we've had NICU trauma, if we've had various issues, our brain says, mom is not mirroring me, or I can't get a response. I have to be interesting to get mom's attention. This is where kids start acting out a lot, or they go inward and don't believe they can get any kind of response. The response dies, the desire to even connect. So then people are trying in dating to be interesting. They're trying to stimulate others. Women say, I have to sleep with him on the first date or he'll lose interest. When you hear that, her mother probably didn't mirror with her correctly. Her father.
Wow. It's amazing how this is so prevalent among, especially our society today, with modern women think that they can sleep around and be just like men and sleep with as much men as they want because we're, men and women are equal and da 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 da. But at the nucleus of it all is that your childhood is driving you. But also, even when they become aware of what's driving them, they still continue.
Didn't mirror with her correctly. She learned, I have to be interesting and stimulating. Guys, same thing. When they try to dance for women's approval, it's that mirroring neurons all the way back. You've probably met guys like this, right? That try to be interesting instead of be real.
Yeah, I think there's a massive lack of confidence and insecurity around authenticity. There's all manner of rumor and half truth and full truth and no truth about vulnerability and when it's right to open up and when you shouldn't open up as a man. And the more layers of bro science and half remembered hearsay that you layer on top of an interaction, the more performative it becomes, the more persona and less person there is in the interaction. And the more that happens, the less you actually feel connected with what you're doing, because you're not connecting from you to a person, you're playing a role. So even if you do get the outcome that you want, the person isn't in love with you, they're in love with this projection that you've given them. And this is such a dangerous catch-22 to fall into. It's the reason I think fundamentally that the actual hardcore pickup world failed for men that were unconfident with women, because what it taught them was that the person they had to be and the person that they genuinely were were so far apart. If I need to go through this massive rigmarole and say, did you see the fight with two midgets outside? Isn't that da, 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 da? And then I've got to neg her and like twist the lemon, and I've got to like, you know, ignore her and chat up her friend and do all this shit. It's like if I have to go through this complex fucking rain dance to try and get a woman to go to bed with me, and that's not what I would do, what does that say about me? And
Absolutely.
you know, it's one of the problems of taking your cues from culture as opposed from yourself. And again, you know, a lot of this could come from parenting problems too.
It's exhausting, I'm sure, for a man.
It is. Think of this. There's from what I have found, there are two different dating pools, and they don't flag or signal to each other at all. They have almost no crossover. They're not even aware of each other. There's the secure people who want that direct, human, authentic connection of we are together, we are talking, we're sharing this bond. They don't want stimulation because it feels weird. Too much stimulation up front feels weird to them. They understand that connection, so they want the right bonding experience. Then there's the insecure pool that everybody is trying to be interesting, and they're playing that anxious or that avoidant dance over here. Two different pools that never cross. So when you see guys, every woman out there expects you to be 8 feet tall and have an 18-inch dick, and you have to have 10 billion in the bank. And no, you don't. And you don't have to dance for her amusement and endlessly play games or have dread game or control her. That's only going to work on those insecure women over here. It's never going to work on secure women. They will get up and walk away. You're going to look confusing to them or disinterested, and they're going to track as confusing or disinterested for you. The two dating pools are segregated out completely according to this model. It is wild to see.
Yeah, and you know, just to kind of round out the women having sex on a first date, thinking that it'll get a man to bond with her. I really, really don't think that many of the girls that listen to this show will think that. But if there is, or if you've got a friend that does think that, like, price is an indicator of quality. And for almost all of human history, there was a courting period that needed to occur. Even if the courting period was passive because you lived in the same tribe together and she observed you being competent and reliable and trustworthy and bringing back a big wildebeest and helping out with the whatever, right? So there is a period of value justification from man to woman and also from woman to man. And if you shortcut that, the presumption from a lot of guys, and I can tell you this from first and second-hand experience, if a woman gives it up too easily, the assumption is, well, she'll do this to any man.
Exactly.
Correct.
She's cheap.
That's the first thing men think of. That was a great hamburger. Everyone is eating this hamburger. I'll come back when I'm hungry, but it's not the hamburger I'm going to settle for.
Every single morning for over 3 years now.
Exactly. And I think it continues. No, I think that's it. Well, there you have it. So, you know, as women continue to give themselves up, especially on the first date, men don't value it. Like he said, if she's giving away the hamburger for free to me, well, maybe she's giving it to some other guy. And men really don't like to share. They don't like to share at all. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, men do not like to